was actually in Aurora, Colorado, talking to people on the ground. And what we're hearing, of course, Martha, is that people are terrified by what has happened with some of these Venezuelan gangs.
Senator Vance, I'm going to stop you because I know exactly what happened. Martha. I'm going to stop you. The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border? Americans are so fed up with what's going on, and they have every right to be. And I really find this exchange, Martha, sort of interesting because you seem to be more focused with nitpicking everything that Donald Trump has said rather than acknowledging that apartment complexes in the United States of America are being taken over by violent gangs.
Okay, let's just end that with they did not invade or take over the city, as Donald Trump said. I want to move on.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all having a great and wonderful day. Well, it seems that what we have here is a sample of, Martha Raddatz really just lying out her ass, as always, because obviously she doesn't seem to realize what's really going on in Colorado. And this is something new that has propped up as of yesterday that was going on in Aurora, Colorado, and we're going to go over it. So, what we have here is that Aurora apartment worker beaten to a pulp by Tren de Aragua as owners say migrant gang took over and tried to extort them. Says a fed-up landlord in Denver suburb has shared a bloody photo of one of its workers after the man was allegedly beaten to a pulp by members of the brutal Venezuelan prison gang for refusing to let them stay in a vacant apartment they had taken over. The Brooklyn-based company claimed that the gang effectively stole an entire apartment complexes out from under it by threatening employees and tried to extort it for a cut of the rent in exchange for being allowed to keep operating the properties. Local cops and the FBI were asked to help stop the extortion but refused to step in. CBC management said, gangs have taken control of several of our properties in Aurora, Colorado. The company wrote in a thread on X last week. In an attempt to discredit this fact for political purposes and avoid governmental accountability, some have spread false information about our situation. The company, which owns and had to manage the properties, poses multiple surveillance videos from its apartment complexes, including the footage of the beating of the employee late last year that it said proved the gang has a foothold in Aurora. The firm said that it was as a result of the criminal behavior and threats, it has had no choice but to pull its workers back from its apartment complexes in the city of 390,000. Despite clear evidence, many still deny the reality of the situation, sometimes using it as scapegoats. That's why we are no longer staying silent, the company wrote. We will continue to counter falsehoods with simple facts and evidence. Yes, gangs did take control of our apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado, and the government did nothing. That is the real story. The Post was the first to bring national attention to the issue of the Tren de Agua's takeover of apartments and neighborhoods in Aurora and neighborhoods. This does not just mean apartments, Martha. This also means neighborhoods. So when we go and say that, oh, well, they're not taking over, it's not an invasion or whatever, well, they literally just said neighborhoods. So maybe you might want to retract that statement. I know this is a little bit a ways ago from what was said, but this is how the media does it. They flat out lie and say, oh, this is not happening, oh, it's not a big deal, or they do what Martha does. They lower it down, it's like, oh, it's just a handful. It's just a handful, guys, this is not a big deal, when it is a big deal. Just because it's just a handful doesn't mean you just don't stop it. Oh, they're just a handful of grapes. Guess we just don't deal with anything. Or a handful of sexual assault. Oh, I guess we just don't do anything about it. It's not that big of a deal. It's still a big problem, and you need to clamp down on it before it gets worse. This is how the media does it, guys. This is how disgusting they are. On Friday, former President Donald Trump visited the city and attempted to link the problems in Aurora to the Harris-Biden administration's border policies. Meanwhile, the issue also has a deeper local angle. CBZ management has a history of citations dating back to 2020 before the gang's arrival in Aurora. Violations span from mice infestations to ceiling damage to dozens of unlawful parked cars. Aurora Mayor Mike Coffin has labeled the company slumlords for failing to clean up the properties. Zeb Bergman Garden, who is described as CBC's owner in court documents, agreed earlier this year to sell or otherwise give up control of one of the blighted apartment complexes after a lengthy legal proceedings against him and his company. CBC management accused the city of covering up the presence of the foreign gang, saying it instead drummed up code violations to shift the blame. The company claimed that it received a perfect inspection in 2022 and 2023, and that any violations were dealt with. The only violations that weren't dealt with were when the gangs took over, and we didn't want our 6 on-site staff working there for their safety. Despite the local dispute over the condition of the apartments, residents and local officials interviewed by the Post said the Tren de Aragua presence in the building is clear. According to CBC, the company took ownership of the apartments in 2019, hoping to renovate the units over a few years. The company said it was able to renovate nearly every unit in the Edge at Lowry Apartments, the site of recent viral footage taken of 6 armed gangbangers forcing their way into a unit. So, that is what was going on here, guys, right? And it gets worse, guys. It gets worse. That's when the CBC also moved an employee from New York to help manage the ambitious project, according to the Post on X. But the company said it soon observed a rise in crime and tenant complaints. That's when the employee was attacked. He was inspecting a recently vacated unit where he found a group of male squatters who tried to bribe him with $500 to overlook the situation. When the employee refused the bribe, the group beat him so brutally that he had to be treated at the hospital. So essentially, they almost beat him to death. That's what's going on here. They almost beat him to death. And this is not a problem, right, Martha? This is not a problem. This is not a problem. A guy nearly gets beaten to death, and this is not a problem. The problem didn't stop there. The employee began receiving threats over text, which even revealed his home address and spouse's name. The problem only continued to escalate. Squads of Tren de Aragua members continued taking over vacated units, including one belonging to a tenant who had only left for vacation, forcing him to find a new home when he returned. The gang started moving migrants into the units. The new tenants claimed to have paid rent, but the company soon realized they had actually been paying the gang. Said the company managers later met with the FBI. Agencies said Tren de Aragua was behind the text and building takeovers, but the issue was a blip on the radar because of the gang's nationwide presence. The on-site manager of the apartment was then confronted by the gang, which threatened to seize control of the apartments if the company didn't agree to split the rental profits, the firm said. For the safety of our management team and their families, we withdrew them from the properties and focused on seeking help from government agencies, which the government refuses to help. Because the mayor of the said government is a Democrat. A rep for Aurora called CBC's claims were exaggerations, adding that the company conveniently failed to disclose additional complaints against them. These delinquent property owners, managers, or investors conveniently failed to acknowledge that their own bank lenders took them to court in the last few weeks, where a judge ordered some of their problematic properties into receivership. That means a judge has given the legal authority to a third-party receiver to actually manage the properties and who the property owners will be forced to compensate. The FBI declined to comment, of course, because the FBI are complacent with this. Mayor Coffin has previously dismissed the claims by the landlord that the company's problems were due to Tren de Aragua, especially with regard to the company agreed to give up. It's a little too late to play the Venezuela gang card, Coffin said at the time. Certainly, there are other parts of the city that we're looking at that we're concerned about that. But the problem in this building certainly precedes any problems with Venezuelan gangs. So let's go look at Mayor Coffin, right? Mayor Coffin here, exactly who he is. And I heard he was a Democrat, but it looks like he is part of the Republican Party. So, that being said, this guy, who is a rhino Republican, who is a piece of garbage, he said that mayor of Aurora since 2019, he is he is part of the Republican Party as garbage. And then, of course, if you go and do this, it says here, Aurora Mayor Pro Team Dustin Zebanok stepping down from our city council at the end of October. So this is what this guy is. So he's stepping down and all that stuff. So what we have here, guys, is something even more astounding, right? So this was on October 11th from CBZ Management. gangs have taken control of several of our properties in Aurora, Colorado. In an attempt to discredit this fact for political purposes and avoid governmental accountability, some have spread false information about our situation. Let's set the record straight. So this is what's going on here and what they're talking about with the management and all this cost that was going on. So this is what the apartments essentially looked like and what they were doing for refounding and repurposing and all that stuff, right? And this is what happened on here, and this is going to show the beating. I'm not going to show that or whatever. But this does show exactly like what's going on here. This is the Tren de Aragua people. This is what's going on. And all that stuff, right? So, yeah, this is the gang that we're talking about. And I don't know about you, but these are things that are going on. So, and then with we're talking about the text, it goes and says, and this is what this guy says. So, who is this? And he said, pussy ass Jew, all right? So that's what's going on here with the text. And then, and this car says, better keep a strong eye on your kids and what have you and whatnot and for their safety. So again, this is what's going on here. This is what's going on in Colorado. So the fact that we have this Raditz here, just saying, Martha Raditz saying that this is not a problem, oh, it's only a handful, well, this is what's going on here. And this is a guy that is actually being injured. So again, what we're going to do here is just not lie. Aurora, Colorado is being taken over by the Tren de Aragua gang, and it is all these other issues that's going on here, and I think people need to start understanding the true depth and dangers of what the Venezuelan gang is, because this is just reality, and of course, the media wants to lie and make it not a big deal when it really is. Alright guys, that's it for the video. Like, subscribe, share. As always, take care, my friends.
I'm disgusted by what I see in public. Even people closest to us can't be trusted, because it's algorithmic disease, the social media.